Okay, so from here I've got nice shape of the head here, back of the skull, good round top of the skull, flat plane where I'm going to put the face later. You can see it in profile this way. We're just going to put that to the side for now. Okay, so now I've got my shoulders. Okay, and so from here, a lot of people try to start this off the way they do with the face. They put the clay in the middle, or they put the newspaper in the middle of the clay here and try to bring the clay upwards to wrap around the newspaper. You are not going to win. Gravity is going to win against you. So you might as well just take a board. So let's take a board. Okay. And go ahead and just put my newspaper on the board there. Even if we're being smart, which we always are around here, we're going to put a piece of newspaper to spare under there so we can rotate our work without worrying about the work sticking to the wood. I'm just going to take this slab of clay and I'm going to drape it over the top of my newspaper. That way the heaviness of the clay drapes over my mold and it's working for us, not against us. Okay, so we're going to end up with the same thing. We're going to have some places where there's too much clay, some places where there's not enough clay. Okay. Turn this so you guys can see this a little better. Okay, so I've got some gaps down here. I've got too much clay over here. I'm going to start taking off excess and reattaching it to where we have bare spots. So for the shoulders, I want those to stay kind of rounded because we have rounded shoulders. Okay, so instead of taking this and doing a straight line, I'm just kind of taking my line, cutting kind of a soft organic line. I can always cut off more if I need to. I'm bringing that down. Okay, making that look like an arm or a sleeve. Okay. You can change it later if you don't like it that way. I like to give myself options in the beginning. So now we've got this other big chunk of excess clay over here. We don't want all this on the ground. We are going to do the same thing, kind of a soft round cut like that. And when this gets to the point where you like it, and you've shaped the shoulders the way you want to, and you've gotten all this clay filled in, you can actually take the whole shape, put it on a slab of clay, and create a base, a bottom for that to sit on. We're not going to do that right yet. We want to give ourselves the option of being able to mold this some more directions. Got a pocket of excess clay here. Going to get that off of there. Some nice rounded cuts. We're working with a human figure, not a lot of straight lines and angles. Okay, think soft, think kind of organic, unless you're doing something cubist inspired. I want to keep this kind of draped looking. Take up a little more excess. Okay, there we go. Starting to get there. There we go. Okay. So I'm not worried yet about the neck. Just filling in this part. We are going to leave the newspaper in there. But if I were to fire this just like this with all these gaps here, then when this support of the newspaper fires away, we're going to lose that support. So we're going to make sure that our clay comes down enough to support. Okay. So we're going to get our slip. Okay. I'm taking little scraps of clay that I have left over from where I cut it off, and then you can just keep reusing those Kind of place them in, fill in the gaps. Okay, it's almost like collaging. Okay, when these are a little drier, then we'll be able to get these a little more refined. Just making sure got enough to support that line all across the bottom there. This clay is super moist and our weather is still pretty wet, so this is probably going to take a little time to get to the point where we're going to start to put details in there, but this will get you enough to get you started on the shapes that you need. Okay, I got a little piece of clay here that got away from me. So I really just trying to refine the bottom here. This is kind of where our composition starts. Sometimes I think when people make a portrait bust, I don't really think of the bottom as part of the composition. I think of it as kind of a place where people won't look. But you want to consider that part of your picture plane, so you don't want these awkward like scraps of clay just kind of folding out. Unless you're really going to work on drapery. But for this I want kind of a contained looking bust, so I'm taking off pieces of clay I don't need. Okay, and reinforce it too. If you've got pieces down here like this part I just discovered is a thin spot. Once again, this is going to be your main support on the bottom here, and it's going to be holding a lot of weight. So you want to make sure that you do not have crepey little parts of your clay that are going to crumble if any weight is laid on them. We'll go ahead and reinforce that there. This clay is so sticky, I'm just kind of blending that with a tool so my hands don't end up clogged with clay. Okay. There we go. Another section here. So always turn this around, check it, see where you have gaps. Okay. If you want to, you can add coils in there. You can do a couple different things if you want to. I'm using slabs. So, and I have excess slabs sitting to the side of me. Okay. And that blue stuff in there is little chunks of underglaze I had sitting on my table, which I decided not to clean off, but let be in the surface of my clay. The subject that I'm working on is a painter, and he always enjoyed things that were kind of a sense of serendipity. So I think he'd appreciate that he's picking up pieces of color from my studio as we go here. Okay. Okay. Put in a little more. A little tighter. Okay. It's good to leave the bottom open for now too. If it does look like you've got big chunks or foldovers or undercuts or stuff, you can always gently remove the newspaper, fix what you need to on the inside. If you don't want to add any more clay to the outside, you can come in from the back, slip a little reinforcements or bandages or structure or whatever you need to. Okay. So this is going to be his front. Okay. And I'm going to create a line that's kind of just a halfway mark widthwise, just to give me a sense of proportion. So when we start laying out features like the neck, the shoulders, we're going to create things that are kind of mirroring each other on either side of that line there. Because humans, we're not completely symmetrical, but we're fairly even. So if you've got an idea of where the dividing line is, then you can section stuff out pretty well. You can erase that line when you don't need it. Okay, and we are going to let our clay set up just a little bit before I put the neck on there, because if I attempted to put a lot of clay on there right now, that would just sink like a golf divot right into the middle of his neck there and sink his shoulders and everything. So we want this to set up just a little bit, lose some of its moisture, and then we'll be back to do some more structure, neck, and we'll be laying out the proportions of the face.